Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of How We Disney. Today we're going to be talking about our favorite rides in Walt Disney World, and we're going to go park by park, and we're each going to give our top 3 rides in each of the parks. And with that, kind of have Sarah tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do.
Yeah, so we'll do like how we rank the parks, but when we're ranking, we're just doing rides. So we are not going to include any shows, no fireworks, so just the rides in Disney. So of the rides, these will be our favorite ones.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to start with a tough one?
Sure, what park do you want to start with?
All right, let's start with Magic Kingdom. So this one was one of the trickier ones for me. Was it for you?
Yeah, this is actually the only park that I had a hard time ranking my top 3 rides in. The other 3 parks were easy. This one I had a hard time, though.
So are you going to do like my number 1 ride in the park, number 2, number 3, or are you just picking any 3?
I actually ranked them.
Okay,
yeah,
I did the same.
So
okay.
I can start with my third favorite, and my third favorite ride is Splash Mountain. I don't really like the water aspect. I mean, I enjoy the flume ride, but I don't really like getting wet in the park. But the story and just the entire, I guess, environment around Splash Mountain is just so good. You go on that ride, and for 15 minutes or however long the whole thing actually is, you kind of forget where you are, and the whole story of, you know, the bear chasing the rabbit and everything, it's so good. I just love that ride and the story that goes along with it.
Yeah, so first off, I guess we should say is we didn't compare lists again. So whenever we're ranking stuff, we don't compare notes to see if there's differences. You probably know Splash Mountain is actually my number 1. So since you're already talking about it, I will add it there. So my shirt is purposely chosen for that. But so I agree with everything you said about why Splash Mountain should at least be in the top 3. I'm actually a little surprised it is for you, just because I know you don't like the wetness of it. So we don't do it maybe as much as normal. You can't do it in the winters. But yeah, for me, this is like the really well done, like a perfect example of a Disney ride where you have the theming, a story, you have some excitement with the drops, you have music, like the songs in it are just amazing. So for me, it's just an easy, awesome ride.
Yeah, and I like how it kind of builds throughout. You know, you hit these tiny little drops here and there. They kind of just build your anticipation of the big one. I also kind of like how as you go around certain turns and hit certain areas, you get views of the castle and out over Disney World. That's just kind of a cool little added bonus. And yeah, it's a really good ride overall. You know, if you didn't get soaking wet at the end, especially if you're in the right-hand side of the boat with that last waterfall, you just sit under it. It probably would have been higher, but it's still an awesome ride with, I think, one of, if not the best stories that go along with a ride in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I will say, even though you can get wet, there's certain seats you can take where you can avoid getting wet. I'm nice, and usually you'll take the right side with the waterfall at the end. But yeah, that for me, so I know I'm jumping to my number 1, but since you're already talking about it, I'll tag on there with, for me, that's like a no-brainer. That's my go-to, like one of my favorite rides in Disney World, the whole resort, and in like all the world, just because of how well it's done and how well it's themed. For my number 3, do you want anything else on Splash
No,
Mountain?
go for it.
So my number 3 was actually really hard. So I was having a really hard time debating between 2. So I went with Thunder Mountain.
Okay.
Was Thunder Mountain on your list?
Thunder Mountain is number 2 on my list.
Okay, so I was having a hard time with number 3 between Thunder Mountain and People Mover. So for me, I don't know if I just
No,
okay.
People Mover's not on mine, but it is an awesome ride.
Yeah, so People Mover to me is like ranks high, which I mean, it's not the theming of Splash Mountain or one of those, but it's one we do so often, and it's usually not a huge line, and it's just one of those like relaxing rides. I feel like when I'm on People Mover, I can just relax in the parks. But it didn't make my number 3 just because it doesn't have the theming. So I went with Thunder Mountain just because we just laugh on that ride, I feel like. And
yeah, it's so fun.
And yeah, it's good theming. So why did you put it as your number 2?
Well, mostly because every time we go on it, I just laugh.
Yeah.
I love that the lap bars when Sarah and I ride together don't fit. Well, they fit me, but they don't fit her. So she just flies around the whole time. I just have so many fond memories of riding the ride. You know, like one time we did it at night, and it was to close the park, and I think we might have ridden it 4 or 5 times in a row. The cast members never even had us get out. They just kept letting us go around and around. So it's a really fun ride. I actually kind of like, even though we're talking about Disney World, the fact that it's in a lot of different parks, so you can kind of experience the same ride or the same idea of a ride around the world and compare it, which is kind of fun for me. But it's just a nostalgic ride for me that's always made me have, you know, fond memories of Disney World.
Yeah. I will say with Thunder Mountain, so yeah, the theming of it is so good. I will say I completely agree with you. The day versus night is so different, which I think makes it an extra fun ride, and that you can get 2 very different experiences. But also, like, riding in the front of the train versus the back of the train is totally different. I strongly think the back is much better. So some rides, like, both the front and the back are good. This one, it's like the back row all the way.
Yeah, and I also think it's an important ride to get a fast pass for. So that's also why it's at the top of my list is, you know, that is a terrible queue outdoors. Yeah. So you never want to wait in that queue. You want to have a fast pass for that one for sure. You know, get on the ride. Don't stand out in just the sun as best you can. But that's an awesome one. So
yeah,
it made my list too, which means I guess we can skip my number 2 because you just answered it. It's Thunder Mountain for me. Second best ride in Magic Kingdom. Yeah,
so Thunder Mountain was my 3rd. Number 1 was my Splash. And I imagine my number 2 is your number 1, is if I know you well at all.
Yep, I bet it is.
So my number 2 is Space Mountain. Is it your...
Yeah, that's my favorite ride in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about it since that's like your favorite.
I just love the thrill ride aspect of it. I love that you're going through it in the dark. I really enjoy the overlays that they have of this ride. So for, you know, the Halloween party or for the Christmas party, it's always got something fun going on. So for me, this is my favorite ride. I remember riding it as a kid and actually being like scared of this ride as, you know, one of the first roller coasters I ever did. And I just loved it from that moment on, and I still love it today. You know, it's not the greatest actual ride itself, but it is a ton of fun, and I really just enjoy the Disney World version of this ride more than anyone else.
Yeah, so I think going back to kind of your Thunder Mountain can be insanely hot. I mean, sometimes even waiting for Splash Mountain, if you don't have a fast pass, can be very hot. Space Mountain's always AC and cool, so like even the ride is really fun itself when you ride it in the dark. That's another one where we like always laugh. I think having the front seat's really fun because you have no idea where you're going, but even if you're a little further back, it can still be fun. But that one also, even in the queue, like the music and the theming, it just really gets you into the feeling that you are going into space. So even though for me it doesn't have the same level of like storytelling as Splash Mountain does, it still has like you're immersed in the experience. So it's still that Disney theming that I think is just so well done.
I also think that the photo pass in this ride is fun. You know, everyone always poses for this one. This is one we always end up checking out after the ride, and it just adds to it. It's just something extra to do and that I enjoy with the ride. So.
Yeah, and there's the 2 sides. So I've never actually, like, Googled this, but I know, like, obviously the pictures are in different sides, but I don't know how different the tracks are or if they're just mirrors.
I've never really paid attention.
But in my head, I feel like they're very different. I don't know if they actually are.
They're probably just the exact same mirrors.
So, but, like, the idea that you have 2 sides, and like, oh, which one are they putting us in? And typically, if you're fast pass, you'll go right. But sometimes it does, like, change around. If you're standby, they'll switch you. So, so I think that aspect adds to the fun as well.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. So those are our top 3 rides in Magic Kingdom. So again, my list, Space Mountain was number 1, Thunder Mountain was number 2, and Splash Mountain was number 3. And you had the same 3 rides, just in a different order.
Yeah, so for me, Splash Mountain wins because of the theming and the drops. And I don't mind the water, whereas it bothers you. And then my number 2 was Space and then Thunder.
Yeah, so, I did actually consider the Jungle Cruise as one just because I really enjoy the storytelling, and sometimes you get awesome cast members. That one just fell just outside, but you know, those are some really good rides for Magic Kingdom.
My close calls for me, People Mover was definitely there. Would I say like every Disney or people like first timer Disney people, probably People Mover is not high on your list. But as like a frequent one. And for me, the other close call with People Mover was Haunted Mansion.
Yeah,
so that one's really close too. But
we always do that every trip.
Yeah, so there was definitely some like for me, Magic Kingdom was really hard, and I had one other park that was really hard. Whereas when we picked certain ones, I was like, oh, easy, like I got this.
Yeah, there were just so many rides that when we go to Magic Kingdom, we make sure we do every time. But this was the only of the ones I had a hard time with. Picking Magic Kingdom.
I had one other park, but we'll get. What park park do you want to do next? We'll see if it's my next problem park.
Whatever one you want. It doesn't matter.
We can do my next problem one. So my next one I struggled with was Hollywood Studios.
Okay.
So Hollywood for me, if you had asked me like a year ago, would not have been a problem because like everything was closed.
Yeah, it's so different now.
But so much has been added over the past even couple years. So it was definitely a struggle for me. So I'm gonna let you go your number 3 first, and then I'll add my number 3.
Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is my third favorite ride, and I know it's brand new. Lots of people probably haven't ridden it yet. We were fortunate to get there, I think, the week before the park's closed to get on it. But that's an awesome ride. The way they make you feel like you're actually in a cartoon is just unbelievable. I love how they tie the queue, or I guess the pre-screening room, into the ride itself is unbelievably enjoyable. And the whole ride just kind of makes you feel like you're in this movie or this cartoon with Mickey and Minnie going on this adventure. And I don't know what style it is or anything like that, but whatever the Imagineers did in the painting and the theming of it is just so unique. I've never been on a ride like it before. It really is, I guess they call it 2.5D or 2, yeah. And it's just such a unique experience, and it has such a great story, and it's so well done that's a really fun ride. Not to mention, before Rise of the Resistance, this is, I think, as far as I know, only the second trackless ride in Disney World. Like, they have them in other parks, but that's a really fun aspect of the ride that kind of gives a unique way of experiencing the attraction that we couldn't really do before this last year in Disney World.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So Mickey and Minnie did not make my list.
Okay.
But I will agree with you that it is an awesome ride, and maybe my opinion will change as I have more time. So we only had one vacation where we were even able to go on it.
Right.
So it was really good. But for me, I guess I just am more emotionally attached to some other rides in Hollywood that were my close calls. So that was definitely in my like possible for 3, but I had 2 that were ahead of it, and then I narrowed it down to 1. So
what is it?
My
What's
number
number
3 is Tower of Terror.
Okay.
So this was a tough one for me, but it ended up winning out. I know we don't ride it as much because it can sometimes get you motion-wise.
Yeah.
But for me, Tower of Terror is just one of those that terrified me as a kid. And that's how you know it's good theming. And so it really, really looks like a haunted hotel, and the storytelling is just so good. And is this on your list?
No,
I didn't think
it's
so.
Not even close.
I know, I didn't think so. But for me, I also love it because the Disney World Tower of Terror is different from the other Tower Terrors in all of the Disney parks. And so with this one here, you move out of the elevator shaft and go through stuff, and then it drops. So I think just how much they put into it rather than just the up and down that happens in other parks makes it so good. But so the theming is what made it squeak out behind my other one I was tied with, which I won't tell you what it was unless after we're done with our list, in case it's on your list.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, I don't like the ride itself, but that ride has some of the best theming in any ride in Disney. And I will say that the part of the ride where you go forward out of that elevator is pretty awesome. I do think that makes that such a unique version of this Tower of Terror ride that... Yeah, I totally understand why that would make somebody's top 3 list. That's a great ride.
Yeah. So, for me, that's what caused it to be my number 3.
All right. Want me to go on to number 2?
Sure, you can do number 2.
So, number 2 for me is Slinky.
Yeah.
So, Slinky, when it was just made, I had such low expectations for this ride. I thought it was just going to be a kid's roller coaster, and, we'd go on it every once in a while when someone wanted to, but it has become one of my favorite attractions in Hollywood Studios. I just absolutely love the ride. I love the queue once you get underneath the area where they have, all the paintings or pictures on the wall, the hidden Mickeys, the way that the box for the train track, or not the train track, but the roller coaster track is on the ceiling. I love the way that when you're on the ride, you have so many unique views of Hollywood Studios. So you can look and see down to Tower of Terror. You can look over once you are on the second half and see, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And then the ride itself is so fun. I love that first big turn where you go up high and then come back down over top of Toy Story Land. So for me, this ride exceeded all my expectations, and I still love it to this day. It's one of our go-to rides. I really think this is probably the ride you and I do more than any other ride in all of Disney World. Is Slinky Dog.
Yeah, that was my number 2 as well. I will say, like, the line, if it's hot out, can, again, be brutal. So
there's
like,
not much cover.
No, not at all. And so that one, anytime we can get a fast pass, like, that's, like, always been on there. But for us, also, like, it's so good in the daytime and it's so good at the nighttime. So it has that same type of thing we were talking about earlier with, like, Thunder Mountain, where during the day you can see all the stuff in the park, but at night you get all those fun colors that happen in Hollywood. And so, yeah, I just love that ride. I think I completely agree with you that my expectations when they said they were building it, I was like, meh, like, come on, Disney. Like, so I was not that excited for it. And now, yeah, I love it. I also think that even though it does have some, like, pretty good, like, that first turn is pretty good, almost everyone can ride it. So, like, Tower Terror, obviously, like, a lot of people cannot ride it. And so I think that it's pretty friendly. It looks more intimidating, I think, than it is. But at the same time,
it's that first turn that looks intimidating because it's so tall, but it's not bad.
But at the same time, if you look at it, you're like, that's not going to be that good. Like, even when you look at it in the park, you're like, meh, it might be okay. But it's so fun. Yeah. So I love that one. It's very a smooth ride. So that was also my number 2.
Awesome.
So,
well, since you didn't get to pick a number 2, why don't you tell me your favorite ride? I'm guessing it's the same as mine. I'm guessing it's the same as everybody's at this point. But go ahead. What's your number 1 ride in Hollywood Studios?
Toy Story Mania.
What?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's Rise of Resistance. So, no, yeah, number 1 ride, easily Rise of Resistance.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, it's probably top 3 rides in the whole world. Like, it's just so well done. So Rise of the Resistance is one of those that I feel like we rode it day it opened.
Opening day.
So we didn't have to, you heard a little bit of, like, the hype about it beforehand, but nobody really, like, knew that much. But even still, like, my family had heard, like, they didn't know, like, tons of spoilers, but they had knew some things going into it, and they still got off and were like, oh my God, that was amazing. So I feel like it's one of those rides that, I won't give, like, any massive spoilers, or if we do, we'll let you know ahead of time. But it's one of those rides that it's not a ride, it's an experience. So
yeah, definitely.
I think they hit it out of the park with this one. And so, yeah, why is it your favorite?
So no other ride have I ever experienced where it feels like you are in a movie. I mean, it feels like I am a Star Wars character trying to escape, just like the ride is intended to. I mean, the size of the ride inside, everything is just so enormous that it gives you this feeling that you really are being captured and trying to escape, and Finn's there trying to help you get out, and you're in this escape pod, and the entire thing just is unbelievable how realistic it is in terms of making you feel like, wow, this is not a ride, this is me in an actual movie. And that experience, I think, is just, they've just knocked it out of the park. I mean, the Imagineers for this one, there's nothing I would have changed. It's absolutely perfect. The experience is just so overwhelmingly perfect. From the queue, where the queue becomes part of the actual ride, where you're getting taken in, to the actual ride itself and everything in between. It's just so well done. The attention to detail is unlike any other ride I've been on.
Yeah. So, okay, now we're going to do spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, skip ahead maybe like a minute, 2 minutes. So for this, what's your favorite part of the ride?
So my favorite part of the ride is a toss-up between, well, actually it's not really a toss-up. Mine is the cannon room, where you're going through and these life-size cannons are shooting out of these windows at, starships, and as they shoot, the cannons are recoiling from, the blast going off, and you're trying to dodge these cannons as you escape, and it's kind of like a little bit of a Ratatouille type of ride if you've been on that, but it's this feeling that you're just there, and if you're not careful, these guns are going to knock you out into space, and it's just so realistic in these windows that they've made where it actually looks like you're in space. It's just... yeah, that's my favorite room by far. You get in there and those cannons.
So for me, my favorite room or favorite part of it, so agree, tons of it. It's all flows so well. But for me, there's part where you go in and there's giant AT-ATs. As a disclaimer, I am not a Star Wars. I watch the movies, but I do not know Star Wars, I guess. But like I was like, oh my gosh, like it was so impressive and so cool, and how they have you move around that room and then move to the next scene. So just like the sheer size of everything was where I lost it. So there's definitely other amazing parts of the ride, but for me, like when we went into that for the first time, I was just like, oh my god, like what is happening? So,
yeah, and I mean, I also, two other things that just blew me away is that, you know, you're riding on a transport ship when you're still, I guess, technically in the queue. Maybe they don't consider it part of the queue, but you're not really on the actual ride. But that is part of the ride. Like, that is as good as many rides actually are, and you're not even to the full part of rides yet. So that's amazing. And the other thing that I think is awesome, especially the first time you ride it, is in that room you're talking about, you actually go onto an elevator and go up a floor. Yeah. So you don't even realize, I mean, you know you're going up, but like when you get into this ride, you don't realize that it's going to be on multiple floors. So just the entire enormity of this ride is just what makes it the best ride I've been on in Hollywood Studios by far.
Yeah, I would say that if you have, well, especially if you have a Star Wars fan, no-brainer, like this is your mission of your Disney trip is to get on this ride. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, you can appreciate what Disney did. And it is just so amazing. So, hands down, just amazing, amazing ride. And easily, like, probably, it's definitely my top 3 Disney rides in the whole world.
Oh, yeah. It's really just awesome.
Yeah, so it's really good. But yeah, so we agree on that.
Yep.
My close call was Toy Story Mania. So I was having a hard
that's
time.
A really fun one.
Yeah, for me, it's just I'm competitive, or I like even if we're working together trying to beat our former score. But but Ride's easily number 1. Yeah.
All right, park number 3.
Yeah, sure. Do you have a preference of which one?
Yeah, let's go to Animal Kingdom.
All right.
Epcot's going to be easy because I think there's only like 3 rides.
That's true.
So Animal Kingdom next. Do you want to go first? You want to start us off with ride number 3?
Sure. My number 3 is Everest.
Okay, nice.
So is Everest on your list as well?
It's not.
It is not. Okay.
But that's a good one.
Yeah, so Everest for me, so it's a thrill ride. So again, like people motion sick wise, which is probably maybe a factor for you of why I didn't make your list. But for me, like it's the probably most intense roller coaster for me. I mean, Rockin' maybe is close.
No, I think Everest.
But yeah, Rockin's so quick. So, but the reason Everest is on my list is not only is it a really good roller coaster with the surprises. So again, probably spoilers for this don't matter as much. But so you go on the ride, you have a front part, you go to the broken track, then you reverse as well. So like if you're with somebody that didn't realize it goes backwards, that's always really fun. But just the theming of it is so well done too. You really do get roped into like the fact that you're climbing a mountain and there's a Yeti, and so. For me, the Everest ride is definitely a really awesome ride for Disney, and it makes my number 3.
I mean, even though it's not on my list, I love the theming in the queue. There is just, that queue has so many details. It's got pictures, it's got artifacts, it's got just so much in there, especially for, we usually ride it on the Fast Pass side, so even the Fast Pass queue where you're typically not stopping, you just keep walking. I mean, there's so much attention to detail in there that the ride really is, it's fun. I mean, there's a lot to it. You can walk through that queue, you know, a dozen times and see something different each time, which I think I really appreciate for that one.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So for me, the combo of like thrill ride, exciting, Disney, and then the theming of it is definitely a big factor for me. So what was your number 3 then? Number
3 for me is Dinosaur.
Okay.
So I really do not like Dinosaur's pre-movie room or whatever. So that part I don't enjoy. But once you get out of that room and into the actual, loading room and on the ride, I think it's a really fun ride. I think that, it's kind of old and cheesy at this point, but it's enjoyable. You go through in the time machine, and you get transported back, and you get to see all these dinosaurs as you're getting flown around in this dark room that you can barely see anything until you get right up close to it. I remember this one scaring me as a kid, and I don't know, it's just something about this ride that I find almost funny. I don't really know exactly what it is that brings this smile to my face when I ride it, but I do enjoy it, and I think it's something we do quite a bit. It's something that we enjoy, and we usually enjoy taking other people on it with us when we're with them. And I found that to be, my number 3 ride.
Yeah, so that did not make my list, but I completely understand why. Yeah, good theming. It terrified me well past being a kid. So that got me into like early adulthood. Finally, I think one day we were with your family there and nobody was in the park, and we for some reason could just like keep going on. And then after doing it maybe 3 times in a row, I finally like opened my eyes and I broke my fear. Or conquered my fear. But yeah, so I think that's a good, like a very good Disney ride.
I'll say that I actually enjoy it more now that we walked off the ride. So we got stuck on it and they had to turn on the lights and we walked off. And I actually enjoy it more now that I've seen it because there's, just plywood trees cut out in places. All the dinosaurs that seem like they're these giant dinosaurs that are real, they're, a neck and a head only, and then it's just nothing behind it. Or, they might seem like you're in a forest in some part, and then they turn the lights on, and it's 3 potted plants with, a tree painted on the back wall that glows in the dark. So seeing that aspect of it has actually made me appreciate the ride more and how little they did to make it seem like there was so much going on. I mean, it gives the impression that you have these full dinosaurs and full forests and everything going on, but the Imagineers have done it in such a way that they, put very little into the actual, size of the dinosaurs or size of the forest and trees and everything going on, which I thought was really awesome to see that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That was getting walked off a ride is like any Disney fan's dream, and so getting walked off of Dinosaur, where it's like a very like cool ride to be walked off of, was really fun. Yeah, so seeing all of that was absolutely awesome.
All right, number 2.
So my number 2 is the safari.
Mine too.
It is, okay. Yeah, so for me, I think that even if you're waiting in line for this one, it's such a long ride, so you really get roped into the experience. But I think that one is like you wait in line for Everest in the standby, and like the ride's over in a minute or so.
Right.
Whereas you wait in line for however long for the safari, and you're on the safari for I forget how long, like 20 minutes.
I mean, it depends,
15.
Right? Sometimes an animal stands and you're in there for 40 minutes.
Yeah. So I think it really does get you, again, the theming is so well, but also it's Animal Kingdom, so you want to see the animals, and like sometimes if you're going to like Dinosaur and Everest, you forget that this is Animal Kingdom and there's also animals, and so having the ability to go and sometimes they get really close to the trucks, and they're very comfortable there, and so I think that aspect just makes it such a Disney experience. It is so unique.
I remember many times where actually, I think it might have been close to last time where we had a rhino in front of us when we were in the vehicle, and then another 2 rhinos right behind us, and we had somehow gotten like sandwiched in between them, and they wanted to get to each other, and so we were going very slow because there was one in front of us, but it seemed like the 2 behind us were not really pleased that we were moving at such a slow pace, preventing them from catching up. And like that's just such a weird experience to have in a theme park, that you have these animals who are kind of dictating how your ride goes. You really don't have a say in some of these cases when the animals want to do what they want to do. So that, I think, is a really fun aspect. And just getting to see these animals up close, I know they're encaged, but the way they're encaged is so much different than at a zoo. So you get to just kind of see them roaming around and experience getting up close to these animals in a way that, unless you're going on an African safari or maybe San Diego Zoo, something like that, you can't really do. And that's a really fun experience for me. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think that there are cases where the safari is not good. So because of the animals, like it's their choice if they want to come out. It's their choice if they want to hide in a bush or be out front. So I think you can ride the safari and you'll be like, that's it. Like we waited in line for that. And the cast members will do a really good job of trying to tell you the facts of knowing like what groups of animals are, like flamboyance or whatever. That makes it really fun. So you can have a bad experience sometimes, but again, they're live animals, so it's not the robotic animatronic animals from Jungle Cruise. I will say that when they announced they were going to do nighttime safaris, I thought they were going to be horrible. They can be not as good, but I did ride it once. And were you with me? I don't think so. I think you were taking photos. But I rode it, and the lions were roaring at each other, like making noises, and then they kind of got up and started roaring, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So if you're there and like you can only ride it at night, like don't get sad. There's always the chance that could happen. And it was just amazing. Well,
that being said, I do think that it is significantly worse at night on average.
Yes.
I mean, it is a much better ride, at least from my personal experiences, during the day. But, it is nice to have that as an option at night because in the past, I don't know how many years this has been going on, do you?
No.
But in the past, you couldn't do it at night. So
Yeah.
it's still, I guess, a relatively new thing. Not that new anymore, but in the past, it is closed at dusk. So it's just nice to have that as an additional option. And I think that, you get to see so many different animals in one sitting that I think that that's kind of why this is such an awesome ride.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so ready for our number one, which I imagine is also
It's probably
the same?
also the same. Yeah.
You want to go or want me to go?
Go for it.
All right, so Flight of Passage is number one.
Absolutely best ride.
So, yeah, this is in Pandora. This is going to be, if you're not familiar with Flight of Passage, it's kind of you're sitting on like almost a bicycle type situation, and you're riding a banshee. So the theming, and I think a lot of people will like argue with me on this. For me, I like the theming of Pandora, like the land, better than Galaxy's Edge. So don't hate me, Star Wars fans, for that.
I mean, it's an
but
unbelievably well-themed land.
Yeah, the floating mountains and all that. So that really sucks you into it. And then when you go to Flight of Passage, it just carries all of that through. So you're going and you're getting linked and you're going and riding a banshee. And so it's a screen, but it's so much more.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, there's no other 3D ride that I can think of off the top of my head where you feel so immersed in it. I mean, from the air blowing on you, the smell, the banshee actually breathing under your legs when you're sitting on it. It really does feel like you're in there, and it's more immersive than any other screen-based ride I can think of.
Yeah. No question. Yeah, I agree. So for me, this actually would rank in like my top rides in the world as well. And part of the reason for me this ride is so high is because not only is it like a cool ride and you really feel like you're riding the banshee, but for me, you get like an emotional connection in that you really get sucked into the story. The music is so dramatic. They have pauses. They have action. And so I think just the storytelling that they did with that gets me so much more than a lot of the other rides in Disney World. And so I think that factor, it's maybe not the same type of storytelling you'd see on Splash Mountain, but it's still like amazing storytelling, and that music and the smells, like you were saying. Yeah. And it just really, really does rope you in. And so I think that aspect for me. It does.
I mean, so when we took my mom on it for the first time, I still remember every single time that it looked like, when you're riding this, you're going to hit something and the banshee banks to one side or ducks or does whatever, she would just scream out loud as if she forgot there was other people there. She forgot it was a screen, and she was fully convinced that, she was up there flying and she was going to hit this thing. And I still remember it because it was that funny that she didn't know or didn't remember that this was just a fake ride because you're just so immersed in this screen with all the different things going on around you that it really does an awesome job in that sense.
Yeah, no, I very fondly remember that as well. So yeah, but yeah, so if again, this is one of those other rides that I say like, regardless of like, what your plans are in Disney, this is another one that you need to like get a fast pass for if you can and do. Like that is one of those like, if you go to Disney and don't ride this, I'm like, why? Like, if it's emotion possibility, like I get it.
But I'd
seats,
say
like some people may not like the seats.
You can close your eyes. So if motion gets you and you're on it and you happen to start feeling it partway through, just close your eyes. And it's not like a roller coaster where if you close your eyes, it doesn't really help that much. It is a screen-based ride, so close them and you'll be fine.
All right, if they get motion sick, they can message you. But yeah, no, I agree. I don't get motion sick very often, but I would say that you're not moving that much. That if you close them,
you move enough, but if you close them, you're fine.
Yeah. So that for me is definitely my number one for Animal Kingdom, no question. So,
all right.
We were pretty similar then, and
more similar than I thought, actually.
Yeah. Do you think I was gonna put Kali on there?
No, I didn't.
So, yeah. Okay, so want to go to Epcot, where I feel like Epcot we're going to be the same.
At least the same rides.
Yeah.
If not the same order.
I agree. Okay, so for Epcot, we will say that right now Epcot doesn't have very many rides open in that they have a lot of new ones coming. So Guardians is coming, and that looks amazing. Ratatouille, we've ridden in Paris, but we haven't.
It is the same ride.
It is the same ride. We have not ridden it yet in Epcot, even though it's supposed to be the same ride. So I didn't factor that in because
I didn't count it because it's not there, and obviously no one knows what Guardians is going to be like.
Right.
Yeah,
so there's limited selection. So just as like kind of a basis of where we're at in Disney. So for your number 3, what'd you go with?
I went with Test Track.
Oh, did you now? Okay.
Yeah, Test Track's okay.
Uh-huh.
For me, I guess it's fun to build the car together because Sarah always tries to build one that looks good, and I always try and build one that looks stupid, and we always alternate turns, so ultimately I win because you can't build a cool car with only one person trying, but you can easily build a dumb-looking car with only one person. But then, you leave that room, and you're all ready to go on it, and it seems like you wait another half an hour, and then you get on the ride, and I don't enjoy the inside of the building, as much as I feel like I could. What I do love is outdoors. And it's funny because really you just go outside for, maybe 30 seconds and you go 65 miles an hour. So it's kind of just like driving around the highway. But it is so much fun going around those banked turns and with the wind in your hair and, getting to see that outside area as your car goes through there is really fun, and that thrilling part of it does make it a fun ride. It also helps, like Sarah said, there's not many rides to pick from, so I guess to me this beat out Nemo and Friends. So it is what it is. It's my 3rd favorite ride in Epcot, but I don't think it would compete with my 3rd favorite attraction in any of the other 3 parks we've talked about.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I would agree with that. So my number 3 is actually not Test Track. It is Frozen. So my number 2 is Test Track, and my number 3 is Frozen. Is Frozen on your list?
Number 2.
Okay, so we just flip-flopped them.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked by that.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
So the reason that Frozen was my number 3 is I guess why Test Track beat out Frozen for my number 2 is, I guess, an easier way to start, and then we can talk about Frozen. So for me, I do enjoy the building the cars. So even though we struggle sometimes, I think it's a very clever way of kind of killing time while people are waiting to go on. Whereas the Frozen queue is like you're standing there,
that's true.
And that one's brutal. So I mean, at least it's indoors, but that's about all they have going. And so I do enjoy that aspect. I am a competitive person, so I usually try to make it good, and Jeff always screws us, but that's okay. But I do enjoy the experience of it. The outside part is so fun for me. So for me, the thrill of the Test Track outdoor part, I guess, is the reason it won over Frozen for me. And I mean, the Frozen theming and the songs and stuff are all really cute. At first, I probably would have thought that I'd go with that, but for some reason, I was just feeling Test Track today, and so that went as my number 2, and then I put as 3 Frozen. So you put Frozen as your number 2.
I did, because there's so little in Test Track that I actually like, the outside area, whereas Frozen, I don't really like any of it as much as the outside of Test Track. But I enjoy all of it more than the inside of Test Track. So it's like a medium throughout the entire ride. So yeah, it's fun. I like the story. I enjoy, some of the different scenes and just kind of progressing through that. I think it's a fine ride to kill time. And yeah, it's my 2nd favorite ride. I mean, if I have to pick between Test Track and Frozen, I am doing Frozen 9 out of 10 times because, you get to go in. You said you didn't like the queue. But I think the queue is kind of, it's boring to be standing in it, but if you look up and take in, the city, or I guess not a city, but Arendelle. The little town you're in, Arendelle, there's some pretty cool details to take in around these sides and up in the corners and things like that. And then you walk through, his hut if you're in the normal line, or you skip that if you're in the Fast Pass. So, yeah, the queue is boring to stand in, it doesn't keep your attention, but to look at it and to take in the details are pretty fun.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, for Test Track queue, all the queue except for building cars is really boring. Right. So more boring probably than Frozen. But yeah, so I agree with you. I feel like you're like, it's a fine ride. That's like ringing endorsement for number 2 ride in Epcot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say we don't go to Epcot usually to do rides.
That's
we go
true.
to Epcot to, wander around the World Showcase, have a drink, grab some food, do a festival. So it's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, yeah, so for me, the things that I like about Frozen a lot are going to be, I think they did a really good job with it flowing through the story. And so that, to me, with the songs and the characters, I think they did a really good job with redoing this ride. the hands down my favorite parts are going to be Elsa when you're in her castle and it's the let it go and then you go backwards. So that part is amazing, and everyone's usually singing along with it. And then also the little bit with like there's a very tiny drop. It's like a pirates type of drop.
Yeah.
But that's still fun. So it's one of those where I enjoy it, but I was trying to think like which one I could do more back to back, and for whatever reason the like outside part of Test Track was winning out in my head. So yeah. But I think for me it was basically a coin toss between Test Track and Frozen. Like it was a hard like which mood am I in? But I think Frozen's a good choice as well. And then number 1, I have to assume we're
number
the same.
1 I love.
Yeah.
It's the only ride that I could ride all day. And that is Soren.
100%.
Yeah, I absolutely love Soren. It's so much fun. I will say that I like the story of Soren Over California better than the new version, but I love the quality of the new version better. Overall, I'd be happy with either one if they wanted to play it. I just think it's such a fun ride to go up and to soar over all of these different landscapes and these different, monuments and locations around the world, that there's just something fun about getting whisked upwards with your feet dangling and then, kind of going and seeing the Eiffel Tower and having it be bent over if you're not right in the middle, and Disney World, and that whole thing is just, that's a really fun ride. That one is really, really well done.
Yeah. And I think that also has the appeal of being exciting, but pretty much everyone can ride it.
Yeah.
And so even I remember we were here visiting with some people that weren't as adventurous, and we're like, no, you got, like, it's fine, because they still do the warnings when you're going into it. So I think they have to do that. But I think it's one that just about everyone can ride and enjoy. And so I think that aspect, it's another one, I don't know if it's just the music or what, but I will get on that one and I will be like, I'm in Disney. Like, that's one of those ones where it like hits me and I get really excited. But Soren to me is just Soren to Tower. Like, as soon as I hear it and I just get on, it's just such a good ride.
It is. It is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that one's an easy number 1. I think that one deserves to be a number, like, at least in the top 3. Is it in the same level as, like, a Rise of Resistance and that type of stuff?
No. But it's really good.
But it is really good.
So at this park, there were 2 other rides I actually considered, and the only reason I didn't pick them is because I really could only ride them one time at a time, and that Spaceship Earth, I love it. It's awesome. You ride through and take in all the scenes, but after one time, I don't want to get back on it again for, quite a while. My next trip probably. Yeah. And the other is Living with the Land. I think that's an awesome ride as well. And I love to go on it, but when I thought about ranking, I was like, can I really get off Living with the Land and just be like, let's get on that again? And the answer was not yes.
Yeah.
So those are 2 really fun ones.
I agree with you with Living with the Land. So I like Living with the Land in that it has that educational aspect of Disney. I guess Spaceship Earth does as well. But for me, like, Spaceship Earth is, I probably will get like some slack for this, is only okay. I think you have to ride it, but we'll see if they refurbish it or not. But Living with the Land, I actually will like drag people on when they're with us, even if they don't want to.
That's a really good one.
But it's not like a great Disney ride. No,
it's not great.
But it's still good. Like, I do agree with that. So yeah, I think that rounds it out pretty much for them.
Those are our favorite rides.
Yeah.
Top 3 in each park. There was a surprising amount of overlap.
I agree. I thought we'd be disagreeing on more. I thought, I'm still shocked you put Frozen as your number 2.
So, I'm trying to think, is the only one we had different Mickey and Minnie and Tower of Terror? We had different orders, but I think those are the only 2 rides.
Oh, no, you didn't have Everest or Dinosaur.
Oh, so, okay, yes. You had Everest,
so we had a few
you
different.
had Tower of Terror. I had Mickey and Minnie, Runaway, and Dinosaur. But yeah, we had some pretty similar ride choices.
That means that they're good ones, and you all should go do them if you haven't already. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's it for today. Thank you so much for following along with episode 3. And we're going to continue this series next week. So hopefully you check back in then. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.